After nearly 2 weeks of escalating military conflict between Israel and Iran, US President Donald Trump announced a complete and total ceasefire brokered through direct and indirect negotiations involving both nations and senior US officials. Now, the ceasefire marks the end of what Trump dubbed the 12-day war, a conflict that saw hundreds of casualties, missile strikes across borders, and US military involvement targeting Iranian nuclear facilities. However, the US president has accused both Israel and Iran of breaking this ceasefire he announced hours earlier.
But I'm not happy that Israel's going out now. There was one rocket that I guess was fired overboard. It was after the time limit and it missed its target. And now Israel's going out. These guys got to calm down. Ridiculous. I didn't like plenty of things I saw yesterday. I didn't like the fact that Israel unloaded right after we made the deal. They didn't have to unload. And I didn't like the fact that the retaliation was very strong. But in all fairness, Israel unloaded a lot. And now I hear Israel just went out because they felt it was violated by one rocket that didn't land anywhere. That's not what we want, I'll tell you. And I'm telling you, I'm not happy about that, Israel, either. Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that.
The conflict began on the 13th of June when Israel launched strikes on Iranian sites citing existential threats. The US joined the conflict over the weekend, striking key Iranian facilities including Fordow, Isfahan and Natanz. Iran retaliated with missile strikes on Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, which housed US troops. The strike was largely symbolic and caused no casualties, reportedly due to advanced warning from Tehran. Trump announced the ceasefire via Truth Social, outlining a phased 24-hour process. US President Trump wrote on social media, quote-unquote, "It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended." Trump emphasized that both sides must remain peaceful and respectful and warned against any violations. Trump, just a few hours after he announced a ceasefire deal, said in a post on Truth Social, quote, "Israel and Iran came to me almost simultaneously and said, 'Peace.' I knew the time was now. The world and the Middle East are the real winners. Both nations will see tremendous love, peace and prosperity in their futures," unquote. US President also wrote, quote, "They have so much to gain and yet so much to lose. If they stray from the road of righteousness and truth, the future of Israel and Iran is unlimited and filled with great promise. God bless you both." Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office thanked the US for its support and warned that Israel would respond fiercely to any violations of the ceasefire. Iran's response was more cautious. Earlier, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said that no formal agreement has been reached, but indicated that Iran would halt attacks if Israel ceased its aggression by 4 a.m. Tehran time. He later confirmed that Iranian military operations had continued until the very last minute. Despite initial ambiguity, Iranian state media eventually announced that a ceasefire had begun, although missile strikes continued into the early hours of Tuesday, including a deadly barrage on Beersheba, Israel, which killed several people.
Iran fired missiles at a major United States military base in Qatar on Monday in retaliation for the American attack on 3 Iranian nuclear sites this past weekend. But US President Donald Trump, saying that Iran had given advance warning of the strike, immediately thanked Tehran for exercising restraint and said it was time for peace. However, later he announced on social media that Israel and Iran had agreed to a ceasefire after more than a week of tit-for-tat missile strikes and a weekend attack on Iranian nuclear facilities by American bombers and cruise missiles. So what happened to Qatar and Iraq?
Late Monday evening, Qatar announced the closure of its airspace, citing the safety of its citizens and visitors. Later, Kuwait, Bahrain, UAE added to the list, closing their airspace temporarily as a precautionary measure. Iranian missiles targeted the largest US base in the Middle East, Al Udeid, in what it said was a response to the US bombing of 3 of its nuclear program facilities on Saturday evening. Al Udeid is home to the US military's headquarters for all air operations in the region. Some British military personnel also serve there on rotation. The attack was first confirmed by Iranian state media and later by the military. The US had previously warned Iran not to respond to the strikes on nuclear facilities and urged leaders in Tehran to agree to a diplomatic end to hostilities in the region. There were differing reports about how many missiles were fired. Iran said 6, the US said 14, and Qatar responded by Reuters saying 19, all of which, it added, were intercepted. No one had been reported killed or injured. It became apparent soon afterwards that Iran had given warning that it was preparing to launch missiles. 3 Iranian officials quoted by the New York Times said that Tehran had told Doha of its intentions as a way to minimize casualties. In his first comments in the aftermath, President Donald Trump thanked Iran for the early notice. He branded the attack very weak and said no Americans were harmed and very little damage was done. He added, quote unquote, they've gotten it all out of their system, and said there was now a chance for peace. Nevertheless, a spokesperson for Qatar's foreign ministry said the attack was a surprise and a flagrant violation of its sovereignty, and added that Qatar was one of the first countries to warn against the dangers of Israeli escalation in the region. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah al-Khamenei meanwhile said that Iran did not harm anyone in the attack, but that his country would not submit to anyone's violation.
We stand after very bitter conditions the region has lived and challenges unprecedented. The sovereignty of the state of Qatar was violated as the Iranian Revolutionary Guard launched a missile attack on the U.S. military base in Al Udeid, which we strongly and vehemently condemn.
Due to the ongoing conflict in the region, Sri Lankan Airlines had taken steps to redirect passengers who were previously flown back to Colombo. The airline stated that flights bound for Qatar and Kuwait were diverted to Oman for refueling before being brought back to Colombo. Passengers from these flights are now being rerouted to their original destinations with the necessary aircraft deployment for their travel. Accordingly, the flight to Kuwait was scheduled to depart at 6:15 p.m. and the flight to Qatar was scheduled to depart at 6:55 p.m. today. Meanwhile, Sri Lankan Airlines also announced that its flights to London will operate today via Saudi Arabia as a precautionary measure.